During a recent trip to Europe, I had a chance to visit some small towns, and it brought to mind in particular a letter which my father wrote to his mother 2 days after the armistice was signed, ending the World War I in 1918. As he wrote of the villages they passed through and stayed in, my mind conjured up the possible looks of these places, and I sought what I felt were comparable scenes to record with my camera. This letter is dated November 13th, 1918. Dear Mother, praise be to God. It's over, or at least nearly over. The armistice is signed, and all's quiet on no man's land. The French people are nearly wild over the outcome of affairs, but they have nothing on the American soldier, who is already restless and wants to be on his way home. During these last few days of the war, I have had some experiences that I'll never forget. After the last attack, 5 mounted men and myself, acting as couriers, closely followed one of our brigades as we passed through the captured towns. The French people, who had been prisoners for 4 years, were cheering and laughing and crying, and had broken into the German storehouses and passed out bread and jam and coffee to the U.S. troops going through. In a town of about 4,000 called Rancourt, we asked a man where we could rest our horses. He took us to his own stable, got hay, and fed the animals, and took us into his house where we were fed cabbage and potatoes. They told us of their experiences, and later gave us a supper of waffles and apple butter, and invited us to sleep there. The town was shelled that night, and one crashed into the stable, killing our horses. Had it been 2 or 3 feet to the side, it would have struck the room we were sleeping in. Next day, my friend and I noticed a little store as we walked up the street, and entered to see what was for sale. That is where this paper came from. Leaving, we saw an old lady standing next door. Thinking we found nothing to purchase, she took our arms, and without a word, led us into her house, and unlocking an old trunk, took out 2 linen handkerchiefs and gave them to us. After talking a while, we began to leave, but she would not have it. She sat us down and served us each a plate of rabbit and made coffee. Afterwards, she took us into a nice little room with a feather bed and a fire already going. She was an aristocratic-looking woman and had a smile coming from her eyes, except when a shell would explode, and then she had the look of a frightened deer. We stayed for 2 days, and since she reminded me so much of you, when we left, I had to kiss her, and the dear old thing just stood there and cried. Well, Mother dear, it's a grand and glorious feeling to know that in a few months we'll be back with those we love. All things must come to an end, and thank God this has. Love from your boy, Walter.